at the end of the day, we don't know when our time is up. Just got to live each day to the fullest and make sure you're doing the right things.
This is the Construction Veteran Podcast. Construction Veterans Podcast. Connecting and celebrating veterans in construction. Now, here's your host, Scott Friend.
Welcome back to the Construction Veteran Podcast. I'm your host, Scott Friend. I'm excited to bring to you guys a former Marine and current CEO of a talent staffing agency, Jared DeRuby. Let's dig into it. Hey, Jared, how's it going, man?
Good, Scott. How are you?
I'm good. I'm glad we could finally team up for this. So Jared and I haven't met in person, but we've known each other for, maybe over a year now. So a guy I used to ride motorcycles with had suggested me linking up with Jared. And we also serve on the same committee for a local veteran organization. But so Jared, let's talk real quick. What's your service background?
So, Marine Corps from 2000 to 2004. Served with 3rd Battalion, 10th Marines. Did a med flow, went over to Afghanistan right after 9/11. 1st Marines over in Kabul, Afghanistan, where you opened up the embassy in Kandahar. Served with 310 the whole 4 years.
So were you a grunt or another job?
I was a field wireman in an artillery unit, but when we went over to Afghanistan, we did not bring the artillery, the big guns. We were field what do they call? Basically a grunt unit, but it's not a grunt unit. They call it a provisional rifle squad.
Okay. So tell me about that job a little bit. So would that be considered like an electrician sort of job, or what did you do?
Correct. It was setting up. It was basically in the gun line. It was a field wireman, and then I cross-trained into field radio operator as well. So basically, started out 06. Is in that 06 field MOS. So the field wireman's job in a artillery unit was setting up the communications between the gun lines and the FDC. The training before we went on float and before we went to Afghanistan, we would do all these field ops, but never actually got to have use of it in Afghanistan.
So when you separated, did you have kind of a base knowledge of the electrical industry? Like you could have come out as an apprentice, or was it not that detailed?
Not that detailed. Probably grounding would be one, because you had to ground in the desert atmosphere in order for the communications to link up. My background in electrical was before that. I'm a 4th generation electrician.
Oh, cool.
Before I went to work, in the Marine Corps, I came down here every summer since I was 12 years old and worked for my uncle, who owned LMD Electrical. And I started out in the warehouse pulling parts and pieces and sending it out to the field. And then when I got old enough to go out in the field for the summertime, I would go work out in the field as a helper. Basically, they had me digging ditches and doing all the basic helper job, and then worked my way up. They're trying to teach me to not be an electrician. I ended up becoming an electrician.
That's awesome. Well, that's always encouraging. I've shared before that I was knee deep in mud on my first job, and I think that gives you a lot more respect for the guys that do this trade. Coming from that, it's really difficult when you don't have that background. You might have the education, but you get into the field and the guys don't know how hard that backbreaking work is.
Absolutely. It really did. It had a different appreciation for it, and being able to line people out and knowing exactly what they're doing, help me out, get into the management style, and then also the staffing. So knowing what I'm providing to people as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. So yeah, that's a good segue. Let's talk about that. You mentioned you worked your way up. So let's talk about what you're doing right now.
So I started a company called Talent Core. Started it in 2017, but what not many people understand is we started out as electrical talent at the beginning. So electrical talent was just for the electrical industry, and our first three customers were MC Dean, Prism Electric, and Getzler Electric. They came those are the first three customers that started us up, and it was just electrical, and it became here in DFW area, DC, and Tampa, and next thing you know, we were going nationwide with it, and then more and more people started to ask us to get involved with all MEP trades. So that's when we did the segment to the talent core instead of just electrical talent.
Yeah, and you guys have been exploding over that time. It's been really encouraging to see that growth. So is this the industry you got in after you got out of the Corps, or what did you do between what you're doing now and the Marine Corps?
So when I first got out of the Marine Corps, I moved down to Dallas, and I was going to go work for my uncle again, and he just didn't have enough work going on. So I ended up going to work. Well, my uncle Mike goes, call up Tradesman International, and I started laughing. I go, "What's that?" And he goes, "It's a staffing company." I go, "Again, what's that?" And he goes, "Well, they find you work," and they put me on a job. It was DFW Terminal D, and I was working for a fire alarm company called FTS, and I had no clue what fire alarm was. I knew electrical, but they hired me on at $10 an hour because I just needed a job. I needed to go to work, and I remember going out to that job site. I go, "What's fire alarm?" And they go, "It's normally open, normally closed contacts, and it's pretty simple." And I go, "I don't know anything about it, but I'll give it a shot." And 2 months later, I was running people, running the job site. Had a few different crews underneath me, and they gave me a raise, and I went from $10 an hour to $25 an hour. And
Nice.
And working for Tradesman International. So FTS was the customer. I was one of 40 temps that hit the job site, and I remember going to a foreman meeting with Austin Commercial and Mills Electric back in the day, and one of the guys, Joe Champagne, I'll never forget him. He goes, "These rented drunks," and I go, "I'm one of them."
Yep.
And he goes, "You're no way." He thought it was a joke. He laughed. I go, "No, I'm serious. I work for Tradesman International." And he goes, "Well, you're the exception." I just kind of laughed, and so I did that. But that right there was like, you know what? I heard the necessary evil statement about staffing. I've heard, all that. And I'm like, it kind of interests me then. They kind of put a plug in my head. And I was like, I think this is something I want to get into. But, again, I worked my way up, and then, FTS hired me on full time as a full-time technician. And their customers were, Raytheon, L3, TI. Those were their core customers. They're right off of Floyd Circle over there in Richardson area, and so we were right across the street from the hill, and we those were the type of those customers were our customers, and got into not just fire alarm, access control, security. So it was pretty neat. So then Tradesman International called me up and said, "Hey, we want to get you to come back to work for us." And I said, I don't really want to go back to work for you. I have a full-time job. They said, "No, we want you to be a salesperson." And again,
That's awesome.
that's where I said, "I don't have any sales experience." And I go, "Well, I don't know anything about sales." And they go, "Oh, you'll be good. You have a good personality and you talk to people." I go, "Well, I don't know anything about it." They said they trained me. Well, I gave it a shot. I went to work for them, and I remember my first sales call, and I got to the decision maker. I was like, "Hey, this is Jared DeRuby from Tradesman International. And I'm looking for, Jim Bob or, whoever it was." And they go, "This is him." And I hung up the phone right away. I was like, "Oh,
Oh my, what a great first impression.
yeah, I finally got to the decision maker, and I didn't know what to say. So I hung up. So that was my intro to sales, basically. And
Wow.
So for Tradesman International, I started out as a local rep here in DFW, and then they had me open up their San Diego branch for them, and this is in 2006. And so I moved out to San Diego. I was, a couple years, a year and a half out of the Marine Corps, and I guess almost 2 years out of the Marine Corps. Yeah, because I got out in 04, so it was 06. Got out of the Marine Corps and got to San Diego and started that branch operations for Tradesman International, and everything was going well, and they weren't giving me the support that I needed to help really grow it. So I said, you know what, this isn't working for me, and went back to Texas, and I went to work. That's when I went back to work as an electrician, as a superintendent for LMD Electrical for my uncle's company, and did a couple of schools and did a few restaurants, and those are the type of projects that I was running, and did that for a couple years, and then 08 hit, and we had a GC that went out of business that owed us a bunch of money, and just didn't let the rotating doors keep on, or the snowball effect keep on going. So we had to make the tough decisions to close down LMD, and that's when I said, you know what, I want to get back into staffing. So in 08, I showed up to CLP Resources and knocked on the door. Guy Rick Rennis, who, funny enough, he works here. He's a regional director for me here. But showed up to his door. I said, Jared DeRuby, he knew who I was because we were a customer, and I told him my background. He kind of knew about it, but interviewed for the spot, and so started with CLP as a local account manager in Plano, and just started killing it right away. So in 2008, May of 2008, I started out with CLP. Grew a great local network of people and customers, and they promoted me to a major account sales manager of Texas and Louisiana in 2009, January 2009, or I guess December of 2008, but started the role in 2009. So did that for a year, absolutely killed it again. 2009, then 2010, they promoted me to national sales manager, and then in 2013, my group started the E&I, the Energy and Industrial division for CLP, which turned to True Blue, and later turned to People Ready, and we started that homegrown business unit, and we absolutely killed it with the solar industry, the wind, the industrial shutdowns, turnarounds, and then also the electrical, the large electrical contractors, the heavy civil, heavy commercial type and industrial electrical projects that we've had. And then so did that until 2017, and they did some restructuring, reorg, and they wanted to restructure the comp package, and I just didn't agree to it. And they said, okay, well, this is what it is, and if you don't like it, and see you later type thing. And so I ended up starting Electrical Talent. So that was March 27th of 2017 was my last day with True Blue and CLP, and I started Electrical Talent on April 17th of 2017, and here we are today.
Man, I know it's a lot to compress, but overall, that's a pretty fast time frame too. I mean, you get off active duty in 2004, all the way up to starting your own company in 2017, having that background as an electrician prior to the service. So I think it's really neat to see that continual growth and people to hear about that. I want to ask you a couple things that you said. So temps tend to get a really bad rep in the industry, just like you said. The guys still to this day will say rent a drunk or these bad connotation like that comes with that service. I've met some amazing individuals, actually one that we're hiring right now that I've known for probably 5 years that has worked with me as a temp, and he's actually older and runs circles around the young guys. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about that, about the bad rep. And what do you think causes all that, and why people have these negative feelings towards temp folks?
There's companies out. It's just like anything, right? You get bad rap on construction workers with the different contractors that, just try to cut corners, right? So same thing. There's a lot of bad staffing companies out there and temp companies that try to do things the wrong way, the unethical way. Just, they're the order fillers and the body slingers, instead of taking the time and putting the right recruiting process in place, e-verification, making sure they're doing the right background checks, the right reference checks. I mean, we are dealing with a person, so at the end of the day, different personalities on job sites might come into play. One person that works well for customer A might not be the right fit for customer B, right? So it's just personality conflicts to certain aspects. But if you do the right process of recruiting and do the bend test and the skill set assessments at the office level, and you're knowing that you're putting the right person in front of the right customer, 95% of the time you're going to hit a home run. But there is that 5% that's just the wrong clash of personality conflicts. But there's a lot of staffing companies out there that just try to cut corners and just try to sling bodies, and they're trying to price sell. And it's, at the end of the day, cheap labor is not good, and good labor is not cheap, right?
Yeah, and I like that example you use about, the system that you guys have in place with the 95% showing up that are just stellar. And I'm encouraged by companies like yours doing that, because I feel like the rest of the staffing agencies out there, it's flipped. It's like I'll find a 5%, which this one guy that I mentioned earlier, he just stands out in my mind. He was the one that I've had in a long time that has just been stellar. And I've had these conversations as a superintendent, hey, don't just send me a warm body. I need somebody that can follow directions, show up on time, just do their job. And then I'm looking too, and I'm saying this to try to encourage other people that might be getting out of the service or looking for work, but I'm always looking for the next assistant superintendent or someone that I can refer to the office, because if they've got those soft skills, I think we can teach them what we do, just like they did with you, right? You didn't know anything about sales, but you had the right attitude, and they taught you. So I think there's a lot of folks that get out of the service thinking, oh, I'm stuck to this one career path, or I don't have the knowledge to do that. I don't have the degree to do that. Man, there's always somebody out there looking to help you out, and really, we're all kind of looking for our replacements and leaving a legacy someday, I think.
Absolutely, that's the major thing, and it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when you identify that you want to leave a legacy, right?
Yeah.
That's the major thing. Some people find it sooner in life, and that's something I wanted to do. I wanted to be an expert in my industry and leave a legacy behind.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've talked about this with other folks too. I'm seeing, at least in my mind, maybe I'm just naive, but I feel like I'm seeing a big shift in the industry towards the positive, towards making an impact on people, not just profit, which is always a good thing. That we want to make money, right? We're not doing this for free. It's not a charity, but I think a lot of us now are more passionate about growing individuals as well along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. That is so funny you say that. I've just invested a bunch of money in training and development in my organization, and that's from the top down. The executive leadership training and development, the mid-level management as well, and then down to the sales, and then also to the electrical side of things, and trying to work partnerships with the IEC, ABC, Texo, and CEF, of trying to train the workforce as well, because I'm a firm believer on our level, if we start training the workforce, we're going to put a better product in front of our customers to help them finish a job on time and under budget.
100%. Yeah, and you're raising the bar too. I mean, I think there's a common gripe right now in the industry is, I don't know if I agree with this, but the younger generation, they're just not quality workers. They don't work hard. I don't subscribe to that. I don't believe that. I've seen some very hardworking guys in their early 20s, girls in their early 20s, but I don't think we're doing well as an industry investing in them, and that's a problem. And I appreciate that you're doing that.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's the other thing is too, is like I'm on full board with you, is it's the training, it's how we train them is different, right? The old school way of training someone isn't working with the new group, and it needs to change. It's a way to identify to get them to get through to them, to train them the right way, and we're starting to see that shift actually take place. That's what I see.
Yeah, and I think humility plays into it a lot too. I mean, there's a lot of older guys that have been doing this 40 plus years that they're very proud of their work, but sometimes to a fault. And they don't, again, they're training their replacements, and they've got to think, what is the legacy I'm going to leave behind? Whether it's owning a company, training the people underneath them. But I appreciate you sharing that. That's really like that hinge point, the shift. So I want to talk about something else you mentioned. So your first sale didn't go as planned. So, you hung up, you were nervous, you were scared, but let's talk about what you learned from that. Cause I think that's one thing not a lot of people share or focus on is learning from those failures. So what did that teach you?
It taught me that I needed to get more sales calls, that I needed
Good point.
to not be scared. I had to get through that uncomfortable. The one thing I realized, I wanted to be successful, and that's who I am. I'm a firm believer. I want to be the best person in the industry, salesperson, whatever I do. I want to be the best electrician. So I want to be the best. And when I hung up that phone, I was like, well, I need to get more sales calls to be better at this. And so I just picked up more phone calls. And the same thing. When I got to my first meeting, I was horrible. I was afraid to talk. And I said, okay, I need to get more meetings in order to be a better person in meetings. I need to present more. I need to, so, repetition makes better. It makes practice, and practice makes perfect type thing. And the same model as any athlete would take it too. The more time you put into something, you're going to get better at it. And if you just commit to that and you have the consistency behind it, you're going to get better at it,
Yeah. And I appreciate you sharing that too. Cause the reason I ask is, Jared, you become a really successful guy, in not a very long time frame. And so I appreciate you being humble enough to share that failure. And I don't think a lot of people do that. And maybe it's not them sharing, but people see people at the top of the mountain and they don't realize all the crap and all the work they had to go through to get there. So just trying to encourage people that, man, if you failed, get back up again. And I appreciate you sharing about starting as a $10 an hour guy. So there's possibilities out there. So I want to shift a little bit. So back to your service. How have you found what you're doing now and working through the trades? How has the Marine Corps service helped you today?
Leadership. The leadership training, the having the band of brothers, mentality. Everyone works together. There's no one bigger than the team. Being able to conquer anything, you put something in front of us, we're going to figure it out and charge the hill type mentality. But all boils down to that leadership capability and just figure it out factor type thing.
Yeah.
I really do. The military is definitely the band of brothers. Being able to work with anyone. I think that's the key part is you always find someone's strengths and then the opportunities, right? Because in the military, you didn't get a choice of who you got to work with, and you couldn't get rid of them, right?
Right.
So I think it's being able to work with a diverse and eclectic group of people and finding their core strengths and adapting to that and working with it. Definitely motivating people a certain way. Like some people's way of motivation isn't the same as others. So military definitely taught me that. In the Marine Corps, striving to be the best, right? And the work hard, play hard mentality kind of stuck with me too.
I always find it neat. There's a common thread with all the guests that I asked that question to, and leadership continues to pop up. I think it's very neat how I can't recall off the top of my head, but very few people have mentioned, oh, I learned this hard skill. Like I know leadership is the first thing that comes to mind when I'm asked that. But I also came out with some practical skills, yes. But I think the soft skills, which, as we know, I mean, makes more people successful in our industry than maybe, I might not be the best carpenter, but I know how to lead a crew. All right, so let me ask this. So we talked about what's made you successful, or at least what attributes you took away from the Marine Corps. But if you could change anything, I mean, is there something that you feel that maybe could have made you more successful or successful faster, or maybe something that you wish you knew then what you know now?
I always think about that, and I kind of live my life with no regrets, and everything happens for a reason type thing. Part of success is failure, and I like the times that I failed, and it made me It made me more successful, right? I would say, I don't know. I that's a tough one because that doesn't resonate with me. Just because I like the learning experiences. That one's a tough one for me. I'd have to think about
No,
that.
I don't think there's any right answer. No, I appreciate you saying that too, because I think most people operate similarly. I mean, I know I do. I'm happy where I am now, and I don't, if I went back to tweak something, who knows? But yeah, I think that's wisdom too. I mean, as we mature and realize, man, I wish I had known that. I'd started this earlier, like investing. Man, I wish I had invested in this earlier, kind of deal.
Well,
So hindsight's
yeah,
definitely 2020.
yeah. I wish I had invested more at a younger age, right? But at the end of the day, I have a pretty diverse book of investments all around me. Yeah, so everything happened for a reason type thing, and I wish I didn't go out as much as I did in my younger years, right?
Yeah.
And have more time, going to bed earlier and working out and being healthy, right? But those are learning lessons as well. I still have my good health to me, and you know, on the track for losing weight, that type of living a healthy lifestyle and not going out as much anymore and spending more time with my son and my family. So that's if I had any words of wisdom for anyone, it's spend more time with your loved ones, right? And try to build them a better life than what you had. And I know people
Yeah.
hear that, but until they live their life and didn't spend as much time with their loved ones, and there's only so much time we have on this earth, right? And at the end of the day, we don't know when our time is up. Just gotta live each day to the fullest and make sure you're doing the right things.
Yeah, I think that's another sign of us just getting older and maturing and understanding these things. But the reason I ask those questions too is there's got to be, a young Lance corporal about to separate, and I really have a passion for just drilling it into their head. Hey, look, this is what matters most in life. So I appreciate you sharing that about your family as well. It's same for me, man. I got 3 little girls. I haven't figured out the sleep thing yet because, again, I have 3 little girls, so I don't barely sleep anymore. But yeah, I mean, let's take the time for what matters most. Work is out there, the money's out there, it'll come, but you want them by your side as you're growing in the industry in your career.
Absolutely.
So in this industry, man, it's tough. We know there are lots of mental health issues, even just not for vets, for the industry as a whole. Alcoholism, which I shared recently, I just became sober again. It's tough. So if we've got somebody that's in the industry currently, that's a vet, that's just struggling, man. They're going through the grind, and they just don't think, hey, maybe not to the point of taking their life, but I'm done with this industry. That's the wrong mentality because we need people. So what would you say to them to try to encourage them?
So I mean, there's two folds, like, because I've seen it. Me personally, I've seen it on the military side. The veterans that getting out of the military that don't have a purpose, right? And they lost their band of brothers, they lost their connections, their network of people that have been through the same issues with them. And I was the same way. When I got out of the Marine Corps, I didn't have my purpose. All I knew was go to work. And then after work, I would get into drugs and alcohol, right? And every night was the same thing. And I got lucky because I was able to say enough's enough, and I wanted to change my life. And that's when I met my ex-wife, and it went a good direction, and I cleaned myself up, and I still like to have a good time, and I still drink. I don't do it as much as I nearly did, or even before that. But I will say that there's a lot of Marines that I've lost that got into the depression and they never asked for help. And if you feel if anyone feels like they're alone, they can reach out to me at any time. My phone's always on. I've talked to people, and the other thing that I do, I own a yoga and meditation studio in Frisco with my wife.
I did not expect that. Not at all. That's
No,
awesome, though.
a lot of people don't know that about me, but
Secret's out, man.
It helps. I get a lot of people that are lost, anxiety, depression, and my wife Aiko she's awesome. She does sound bath meditation, breath work, detox. So that side of things really helps out. But it's what I've realized. They call it their community. And it's the same thing with military. Remember, I tell you, like, their community to be military focused, the people that are combat vets, and they want to talk to combat vets, right? Same thing in the community, the yoga and spiritual and meditation community. They want to talk to like-minded people that they feel comfortable around. So the one thing I will say about depression is finding like-minded people around you to explain your story and where you're at. And there's other people out there that have been going through the same thing, that have gone through the same thing, that got themselves out of it, or the work with other people, the support systems around it. There's plenty of support systems. I still think there's plenty to do. We do so much, 22 Kill with Dan Lombardo, his vision and his mission has done a great job. We're trying to get the Combat Vets Motorcycle Association, Vets Helping Vets. There's so many, not so many. There's quite a few that I'm involved in, that you're involved in, that help out the vets, that have the passion to help out the vets, and I love that mission. And I'm just on a mission to try to help out as many people as I can, because I'm a firm believer. I want everyone in my life around me to be successful and succeed and be the best version of themselves and leave this world a better place. And you can't do that without the right mental stability or vision, or it's really passion. There's a lot of passion around me on this, and going in a lot of different directions.
Yeah, no, and I can hear it in your voice, man. I appreciate that tremendously. And I think, at least for me, when I got out and I missed that brotherhood and the people around me, I found it so much in the construction industry, because you're working hard, you're working late hours, you're tired, you're all complaining. So something's going right. Things are going wrong if we're not bitching. So
Right.
we get that, and we connect with these guys, and it's so cool because there's this mutual respect of, hey man, I haven't been in the trade 30 years, but I had a hard go on deployments and whatnot. So there's this mutual respect that goes with it. So I found, at least the vets on my sites, they're more apt to open up to guys that may not have served. But there's always a vet on a job site too.
Mm-hmm.
And it might not be another like GWAT vet or Iraq vet or, whatever campaign you might have been involved in. But we have a lot more similarities than we do differences, at least. I mean, this is not old school VFW where they look down on the newbies, so it just, that mentality is gone. And what I'm encouraged by too, and you've probably run into a lot of these guys, like there's people, at least here in DFW, that these guys served at like the tip of the spear. Like these are the dudes that go bump in the night. And if a guy like that is willing to say, I have problems I need to work on, and they've come through it, I challenge the guys on my job site. I'm like, look, if this dude is, America's best that we have, and if he can suck it up and he can be humble enough to go take care of it, so can you. And sometimes we need that tough love as vets. It's like, you need the smack upside the head to say, hey, knucklehead, you got to work on it.
You're absolutely right. And a lot of people are afraid to work. Like, it's tough to work on yourself, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah.
It is very tough, and you feel lonely, and it's called work for a reason. But when you're in your own thoughts, it's hard to get out of it. And, again, like, the yoga meditation world, I did that with the help of my wife. She's the one that got me into it. It really helped me. And I said, all right, I want to really get into that. And that's been a blessing. But I go to a psychiatrist every week. And it really, it's not just for mental, it's just to get me on a clarity to get my thoughts in the right direction, right? Like, another sounding board is what I like to say. That, it's I wouldn't say judge-free zone. It's not like that. It's just more of like, it's a way that I can voice out my thoughts and not have to think someone around me doesn't think, oh my God, your thoughts are crazy every second of the way, right? And that helps me out with business, helps me out with my marriage, helps me out with my kids' relationship. It helps me out with everything, right? And it's not like I'm not waiting until there's an issue. I'm going beforehand. It's the preemptive measure as well.
Yeah, that's good wisdom too. And I appreciate that. And I'll be open too. I do the same. Most recently, I linked up with eQuest. I don't know if you're familiar, but they've got a free program for vets. And so I've got the therapist, I've got somebody who is like the horse handler, if you will, and it's therapy with horses involved. Well, I grew up in Kentucky, man. That's the horse capital of the world. So I love our animals that we have on our property. I love being around that. There are so many free programs. Again, One Tribe, fantastic example. If people are struggling, because I think guys are worried, oh my gosh, I'm going to spend thousands of dollars on therapy, which is not at all the case. And you don't have to be 100% disabled or even have a rating at that for a lot of these programs to accept you. You just got to prove your service. That's it.
Oh, really? I didn't realize that.
Yep. I think when I applied for this one, I think all I provided was my DD-214. I didn't have to give them my disability percentage or anything like that. And it's been great, man. And like you said, it might not be a judgment-free zone, but they've really helped me. And I haven't been going there for but a few months. And we've already had a couple breakthroughs where I'm like, man, I didn't think about it that way. It's a good way to look at these things, whether it's marriage, work, kids, whatever.
No way. I didn't realize that. That's pretty interesting. I mean, I just know there's so many different outlets nowadays. I get invited to a different military, not, at least once a week. I know there's one MVP out of Carrollton that does military as well. Like, it's just, there's so many different avenues for support. It seems like nowadays it's really, it's letting other people know about it, right? The other vets that don't know the network, don't have the network. And, but vice versa, even other people, I say other people, it's the wrong way, but it's the civilian lifestyle, right? Like
those people.
Yeah, those people here. Like, I'm saying it the wrong way, but like non-military people, there's support systems out there for them as well, and it's just it's pretty cool. You don't really know about it until you get involved, right? But again, it goes back to my initial statement. If you're having issues, you have to speak up. You have to go to someone and talk. Just like, don't be afraid to. It's not worth committing suicide or getting down to the true depression where you're in a dark spot and you're being isolated by yourself. That doesn't help it doesn't help yourself. It doesn't help the situation. It doesn't help the people that love you that are around you.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't mean to sound callous when I say this, but that first step is the hardest, but you have to be the one to do it. Just like looking for work. The networks are out there, man. I mean, I know between us, we probably know half of DFW, golly, but the people are out there to help and support. But you have to make the first step. And I'll give you a great example. When there's people maybe tell my wife or tell a friend, oh, I'm looking for work. And I say, okay, here, give them my email. I'll wait to hear from them, or give them my card, my number. I'll wait to hear from them, because I want to see, like, do they really want it? Or are they just looking for a job? Or do these guys want a career? Do they want to build a relationship? What is that? But the onus is on the individual for that first step. And there's also things like EAPs. A lot of places have an employee assistance program. I know for ours, I want to say it's like 4 or 6 free counseling sessions. So that's just as a company employee. That has nothing to do with my veteran status. A lot of good established companies have that now.
Yeah, and we do too. In our company, we do it for our employees as well. We have a wellness. I guess we call it a wellness program now. And I guess the people and culture in we reframed HR into people and culture, because we realized we had to invest in our people instead of HR, right? HR had a condescending meaning, but people and culture does a great job of getting the wellness programs in place and making sure our field employees, all of our employees, know about it. So that's a major step for any major corporation.
And some of the stuff, like, people sometimes don't have the time just to do the basics, which sucks. And I'll say that, coming from the field, it is extremely difficult to drag yourself out of bed at 4 a.m. to go to the gym before work. But I had to personally do that because I was so exhausted coming home. So you have to stick to some sort of a routine. Diet plays so much into that, and your mood, and water, hydration, all that. So, you got to start fixing the small things. And I think that'll help a little bit with, by no means am I a physician or anything like that. That's not what I'm getting at. That this is, it's going to fix all your problems if you start drinking a gallon of water a day. But focus on the small stuff, get everything in order, get some help. So I agree with that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So let me wrap us up here, Jared. I appreciate you doing this. If we have vets, so the whole point of this show really was to encourage people to get into the industry and appeal to vets. Now they've got amazing programs like SkillBridge, but if somebody wants to get into the industry, how would you encourage them to join, and where would you tell them to go look?
My way is definitely, you could call Talent Core. We have local markets, a national team. We partner with a lot of different contractors to bring in beginning helpers and give them a career path to get into a pre-apprentice program to apprentice program, and then full-time hire to that customer. So we partner with contractors that way. So if any vets ever need, and there's so many, the DFW market as well as anyone, and I'm speaking just from DFW. I'm not just DFW. I'm speaking all over the country. There's so many contractors that want to hire vets. Happy to plug in to anyone that sends me the resume or reaches out to us, Talent Core, and we're able to plug that and kind of connect the dots and what industry they want to get into. I'd say vets, if they want to get into construction, that's one way. We also do light industrial manufacturing as well. So pickers, packers, assembly line workers, stuff like that. We do that, factory type workers as well.
That's awesome. And I'll link the website on the show. And just to clarify, because if you're listening to this, it's Talent Core, CORPS.
Yeah, kind of like play on words, Marine Corps.
Exactly.
It's play on words. And it's funny, a lot of people don't understand, but a corps is a group of people. That's what a corps is. So it's pretty neat. So
the website's Talent Core, again, CORPS.org. Is that right?
.com.
Okay. Man, now I'm sounding old. Jeez. So no, man, Jared, I really appreciate it. I know I'll be seeing you soon. We've got a clay shooting event coming up for One Tribe and 22 Kills. So Jared and I are both part of the Leaders in Construction committee for that. Lots of good people raising lots of money for our veterans and first responders. If people want to reach out to you direct, what's the best way?
email, LinkedIn, my phone number. You could just put my phone number out there. Like,
I would not suggest that, but that's up to
it
you.
doesn't matter.
I don't know who,
I
don't know who listens.
It's funny though. Like, I answer the salespeople here, they laugh at me. I answer my phone all the time. Like, anyone that calls me, I answer my phone. They're like, but you don't know the number. I'm like, hey, you don't know until you answer. So that's honestly, if you wanted my phone number bad enough, you're gonna get it on online. I promise you.
Yep.
I mean, I have a box of business cards that I hand out to people. Really, I've had the same phone number for over 20 years. People have my phone number, so that's not like that one does not bother me, because if I don't want someone to call me or if they're bothering me, I hit block.
Yeah. So do you just take your business cards? Take your cards and make it rain? Is that what you do? Just everybody has it?
I honestly, I do. I leave business, like, I remember giving my business card, just putting out electrical supply houses, job site. It didn't matter. Like Home Depots. My phone number is out there so much, it really doesn't matter.
I love it.
Seriously, anyone could have my phone number. And honestly, if someone gave my phone number out, that means they want them to reach out to me. So I'm here for anyone, man. I treat the same person the same. Each person the same. It doesn't matter their position in life or where they're at or who they are or demographic. It doesn't matter. I treat everyone the same.
Yeah, I love that, man. I appreciate that, and got a lot of respect for you, Jared, for what you're doing, what you did. Thanks for being on the show, and we will see you soon.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Scott.
All right, man. If you're a military veteran in the construction industry, or you're in the construction industry and support our military vets, and you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, you can find me at constructionvetpodcast@gmail.com, or send me a message on LinkedIn. You can find me there at Scott Friend. Let's share the stories and motivate others.